So I said to my brother-in-law, who do you know? Is he good, your boss? And he said, yeah, he's excellent. So then I told Rabbi Davis. Rabbi Davis then checked with his colleagues. Is he any good? Yeah, he's excellent. So here he is. No further ado.
Thank you. It was worth coming just for this introduction. Exactly. So I grew up in Israel, small confession in Yerushalayim, in the 80s. And I remember at the time we had a foreign minister, he was called David Levy. If you remember him, Moroccan, and it was kind of the joke at the time that you have a guy who doesn't speak any English, but he wants to be the foreign minister. And that was how we grew up. And the story goes that he was once driving down the Netivei Ayalon. You've got to been there once if you've been to Israel. Anyone's gone to Tel Aviv, the main highway. And he's really happy, the sun is shining. And he's got his new mobile. It was a big thing then to have a mobile. So he decides he's going to call his wife from the car. And he says, how are you, darling? What a beautiful day. And she says, yeah, everything's okay. Where are you? He says, well, I'm driving down the Netivei Ayalon. So she says, oh, you must be very careful. I just heard on the news that there's some Michiganer who's driving up the wrong carriage. He's driving up the opposite direction. So he looks around, he goes, one Michiganer? I can see 50 Michiganers. So I want to talk to you about cars and the Michiganer things that they can do. Because we live in very modern times, and Tesla and Google and other companies are racing against the clock to get these autonomous cars on the road. And what most people don't realize is that the reason why we don't have autonomous cars on the road right now is not because we don't have the technology. The technology is 100% there. Your car can start the engine, can take you to where you need to go, turn the corners, go the right speed, stop at red lights, even stop when pedestrians are crossing. The reason why we don't have these cars is because of the ethics, is because of the questions that the people who are in charge still have to deal with. Simple questions like, for example, if there's an accident between two autonomous cars, who do you blame? You can't say that he didn't put on the blinkers, you can't say that he was looking the other way, or that he reversed in the wrong time, because it's all to do with sensors. Other issues they're dealing with is what happens if somebody blocks the way of an autonomous car, because it works with sensors. If a man decides to stand in front of an autonomous car in the street, the car can't move. It's not like you that you can put it into reverse and you just go and you're fine. So they have these issues they need to deal with, and they're getting there. But apart from these questions, they also have ethical questions. That's what we're going to discuss today, because there's no question that the future of motor vehicles is autonomous. If you just think about it for a moment, it will do so much good for our health, for our society. Think about it. When do people have accidents? They got up this morning, they had a row with their spouse, they had a late night. Cars don't have rows with their spouse. The spouse is autonomous cars. So that we're going to reduce accidents by a major percentage. It's going to be unbelievable. More than that, we're going to save energy. Today, when you drive your car and you want to go one direction, you have to go in your car, and then you have to park it there, and then you come back. Autonomous cars, I think most people won't own their own car. There'll be no point. Why should I own a car? The car will come pick me up, and what it will do is it will take somebody else who's going in the opposite direction an hour later. So instead of your car going once, twice, and the other person going the opposite direction once and twice for 4 journeys, it will only do 2 journeys. So there'll be less emissions, less energy being wasted. Parking will be amazing. The cars won't need to park. You finished your journey, you need to park your car. This is an autonomous car. Most people, as we said, won't own their own car because there's no purpose for it. And it will drive somebody else. So it doesn't need to park. It drops you off and off it goes. You know how much land we'll save? You know how much productivity we can have if you're sitting in the back of your car. You can study if you do daf yomi. You can do your daf. Or if you're working, you can prepare your next presentation. You don't have to drive. It's amazing. So it's definitely the future, but the question is, how do we deal with the ethical questions? So let's begin with a few questions and see how we think is the right way. So imagine you're in your autonomous car. For the moment, it's your car. You own it, you bought it. And suddenly a pedestrian jumps into the middle of the road. You're going 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour on the M1. It's legal 100%. And the pedestrian jumps in front of the car. The sensors of the car, they can measure things very quickly, split second. They realize if the car keeps on going, even if he slams the brakes, he's going to hit the pedestrian, he's going to die. With the speed the car is going, there's no way he can survive. So the car has one other option. It can swerve out of the way of the pedestrian. However, there's a brick wall, and if it swerves, the car will crash into the wall and the passenger will die. Such a speed, there's no way he can survive. How do we program this car? Remember, autonomous cars are pre-programmed. And therefore, whatever will be put in the software, in the computer of the car, that's what it will do. What's the right thing to do? Do we say it goes straight and kills the pedestrian because it's the responsibility of the car to protect its passenger? I paid for this car. That's what the manufacturers are there to make sure that I'm safe. So therefore, let it go straight ahead and kill the pedestrian. Or do we say, no, this is not fair. You're using a machine that is lethal, that's deadly, and therefore if somebody jumps in front of it, you've got to take responsibility, you've got to move out of the way. What's the right thing to do? How do we program the car? And I've done this question to many people in a setting of a classroom where there's more discussion, and many people feel different ways. Some people say passenger is always first, and therefore let you go straight and kill the pedestrian. Others feel that's not fair. You got to look out for society. That's selfish. You're the one who's causing him to die, so therefore the car should swerve. My next question is, what happens if it's the other way around? You're driving your car 80 miles an hour. It's legal in a place that's allowed 70 miles. And suddenly there's a barrier, concrete barrier right in front of the car. The sensors of the car realize there's no way to stop. If it goes straight into the barrier, passenger will die. But it has an option, it can swerve. There's a little field on the side, it'll swerve, or won't hit the barrier. But there's a pedestrian, a random guy sitting on the grass and having a picnic. And if the car swerves, it's going to kill the pedestrian. What do we do? Does the car go straight ahead and kill the passenger, or does it swerve, save the passenger, but kill the pedestrian? And again, some people think passenger safety always first. Responsibility to the passenger, so therefore the car should swerve, save the passenger. Okay, the pedestrian there, but what can you do? Others feel, they say no. How can you kill an innocent guy sitting having a picnic? Let the car go straight and hit the barrier, let the passenger die. Yes?
There is an option.
Yes?
Change the vehicle so that it's non-lethal. Slow it down.
So if we could slow the vehicle down, that it's non-lethal, we finish our lecture right here. We're talking about a case where it is going 60 miles an hour because that is the speed limit. That's, if you're going to Manchester, you can't go 30 miles an hour. You'll get there tomorrow. So you're going correct, but suddenly somebody put a barrier. What can you do? So of course the programmers of the car will put the maximum speed limit of every road. We already have that. I'm sure if you've been watching your Waze or whichever GPS system you use to navigate, the second you go over the speed limit, a red circle comes up and says, hey, you're speeding. So we know the speed of the roads. We're talking about a case where you're going the right speed, there's nothing we could do. Yeah?
With the example of the person walking out into the motorway, surely if we can have autonomous vehicles, we can also have sensors that you can see if there's a pedestrian coming, basically force the cars to slow down.
Beautiful. If the man jumps in 60 seconds before the car, we can have sensors, it can slow the car down. But this person chose to jump into the road 2 seconds before the car came.
You can't play God. If the person's in the right place, then really that's what's going to happen. They're going to die.
Okay, so that's some opinions say we can't play God. Surely the person jumped into the road, so you're going to die. But Tesla and Google, they can pre-program the car that with 2 seconds, it can't stop, but it can swerve. And if I'm buying a car and I want it to protect me, I want it to know that I'm number one, so I'll program the car to indeed kill the person. Maybe a person says, no, but I'm an ethical person. I don't want to kill an innocent person. I'd rather die myself. Let the car swerve. What do we do? Let me ask you another question. Today, the program is unbelievable. Cameras can identify your age in a split second. Imagine the camera can see that the person in the road is a young guy. He's 17 years old. He's still got his whole future ahead of him. But the guy, the passenger inside the car, Baruch Hashem, Kinei Nahara, is 90. He's already seen great grandkids. Maybe he should make a calculation. 1 second. I can go straight ahead by kill a young little schnip, let him have an opportunity? Or do we say, doesn't matter, the age is of no consequence? What happens if it's the other way around? The passenger is a young guy. What happens if perhaps the passenger is not only a young guy, maybe he is the next Einstein of the generation. And the guy inside, is a guy, unfortunately, straight away scans him, goes in. He's been in hospital for the last 6 years, he's got terminal cancer, he's going to die in 2 weeks. Should the machine make a differentiation? Should we program the car to make an evaluation which one's more important? I have another question, and I'll take questions. What happens if there's 2 or 3 or 5 pedestrians in the road, but there's only one passenger in the car? Should the computer of the car change based on the amount of people it's going to save their lives? So as we look at the same situation, I'm going in my car, 60 miles an hour. There's just one person in the car. And suddenly there's a kindergarten, which are going on the annual outing. And what happened? One kid thought it was safe. He goes in, 3 kids follow him. Right in front of the car, there's 4 little beautiful kids. And the car can swerve, kill the passenger. Save the 4 kids. Or it can go straight ahead, kill the 4 kids and save the passenger. What do we do? What about the other way around? The car is going, there's the barrier as we discussed at the beginning. There's 10 kids. It's a big car. It's a minivan. There's 10 kids in the car. Suddenly there's a barrier. If it goes straight away, hit the barrier, all 10 kids will die. It can swerve, but there's the one guy having his picnic. Do we save the 10 kids, but kill the guy having the picnic or not? And a final question. And that is, what happens if we come to a certain conclusion? Here today, an halachic conclusion. Or you have your own conclusion, what you think the way the car should be programmed. And you go and you find this beautiful car. It's made by Tesla, Google. Stunning. Got the leather seats I like. It's got the right radio station. It's got Waze programs. It's got internet, everything. Then you ask the salesman, by the way, how's it programmed in this case? And it's contrary to your conscience. It's contrary to what you believe in. Are you allowed to buy this car? And the question is like this. If it's going to do it, then of course you can't buy it. But one second, maybe I'll never have such a situation. Maybe my car's never going to hit, be in front of a pedestrian. Can I buy a car that theoretically goes against everything I believe in, but practically it might never happen? Do we say, halachically, you can't buy such a car? Yes?
I'm curious of the difference ethically between pre-programming a car to respond in a certain way versus a human driver reacting in the moment when the outcome is the same.
Exactly. This is exactly what we're going to be speaking about. You are in the right place today. As a matter of fact, these questions are not new questions. Everyone who goes on YouTube, you can put in, it's called, I think, the tram dilemma. That's what it's called. Where you have the old question where you have a train and it's going down the tracks. And there's 5 people who have been tied to the tracks by a nutcase, by Meshugana, and the train is going to kill them. You can save the day, you can pull the lever and the train will move to a different track, but there's one person who's tied. Should you pull the lever, redirect the train, kill one person by you pulling it, and that way save 5 people? Or do you say, I don't interfere, let the train continue its course and kill the 5 people? It's amazing to watch the YouTube video about it. Time is very short, I can't go into it, the way people think. Many people say, you want to see the interview people, they say, yeah, of course, pull the lever. You say, okay, one person's going to die, but you save 5. So they ask the same people, and what happens? Imagine it's the same situation. There's 5 people tied down to the train tracks. The train's going very slow, but it's going to kill them. The only way you can stop the train is there's a big, plump, fat conductor who's standing right there. You can push him on the train tracks, and the train will stop, but it'll kill the conductor. No, we'd never do that. Why? By pulling the lever, you would do. They ask the people, you can watch it, it's fascinating to see. Another question which you can watch on YouTube is where they ask a question, they stop people in the street and they say, imagine that there's riots and there's Meshugana people out there and they're going to go and kill many innocent people. And the government can stop the rioters by handing over one person. But he's not a person who deserves to be handed over. He has done nothing wrong. They're going to frame him. They're going to say he's the guy that they're looking for. So they're going to kill an innocent person, but they'll save the rioters from going and killing many more. Are we allowed to do that? So these are all interesting questions, but I'll tell you what's the difference. The difference is that all of these are theory questions, they're theoretical. Because we can have a discussion about pulling the lever, is it right, is it wrong, 5, 1, but at the spur of the moment, You react with instinct, even against anything that you've decided in your mind before. And therefore, it's very, very theoretical. And the same thing, if you're driving a car and you ask, you say, Rabbi, I'm driving a car, my man's going to jump in front of me. Do I brake? Do I swerve? We can have a decision. But then when it comes to the action time, we act different to what we decided based on our instincts. With autonomous cars, this doesn't apply. Because autonomous cars don't work with instincts. They work the way they are pre-programmed. And therefore, these questions are so much more relevant today in 2020. Because what we decide, what we talk about, that's what's going to happen. Yes?
I find this discussion quite disturbing, actually. You're making 2 points about a person who has the choice, or you've got a car, an autonomous car, which is being programmed and has, if you like, not got the choice by a human being. And I find your first comments about saving the planet and all those various, parking and all the other things, I find them very superfluous to everything else. Here you're talking about saving people's lives or virtually killing somebody. And I find the whole discussion...
Your premise of the question would be amazing if human beings driving cars never kill people and never have accidents. Autonomous cars are going to reduce the amount of accidents, there's no question about it. Statistics show it, it's proven, there's massive research. So it's a good thing overall. If I ask you, no autonomous cars, 1,000 people are going to die here, whatever the statistics are. Autonomous cars are going to bring it down to 200. Surely autonomous cars are better. Within the 200 people are going to die with autonomous cars, we have ethical questions. Okay, that's why we're dealing with them. Of course, it's disturbing that an autonomous car has no choice. But if we program it in advance in the best possible way, that's the maximum we can do. And as I said at the beginning, the reason why we don't have autonomous cars is because what's disturbing you is disturbing the manufacturers, is disturbing the legislators, and they are bothered. What do? So at the moment, they're not introducing this great technology with all the benefits and advantages that we mentioned before, because we still don't have an answer. This is what they are thinking about right now. So let's see, this is literally modern stuff.
Do you not think that at the end of the day somebody might say that it's all not worth it because of the discussion we're having?
Unless we can find a good answer. So let's see. Let's wait patiently. So, what would that rabbi say? What would be the halachic view on such a question? Because ethicists, people who are programming these cars, as we said, manufacturers are debating it. But imagine they came to the rabbi, and as a matter of fact, did you know that Elon Musk, who is the founder of Tesla, has actually approached the OU, which is a massive organization in America, Union Orthodox body, and he said, you Jews are known to be ethical people. You have a great book called the Talmud. Maybe you can offer some advice. So the rabbis now in the OU are sitting and debating this question. What we'll do is, we'll see what we did as students in yeshiva. Because in yeshiva we're presented with such dilemmas in the Talmud, and we'll look at certain precedents, certain cases in the Talmud, and try and compare and say, does this address our question? So, to begin with, one obvious place to look into is a Talmud in the Tractate of Ta'anit, which talks about two people who are walking in the desert. Shnayim shahayum mehalchim b'midbar, the Gemara says. Now, to cross the desert, they need a whole liter of water, for argument's sake. However, only one of them has a liter of water. The other one has no water. So they have two options. The one who has the water can say, this is my water, I need it to survive to get to the other side of the desert. Sorry, I can't share. The other option is that he says, I've got a full liter, let's go half-half. So half a liter will get us at least halfway. Maybe we'll meet a caravan, they have some water, they'll help us. What to do? Do we share? What's the obligation halachically? The owner of the water, does he share the water or does he be selfish and keep it to himself? So, when I was in yeshiva and the rabbi would ask me a question and I wasn't sure, there was one safe answer you could always say. Machloikes. All you have to say is dispute. The rabbi said, Rabbi, it's a dispute. I would always get the answer right. For sure, there's two Jews, three opinions, right? It's got to be a machloikes. And this is no different. So, the Talmud says like this. Ben Petura holds, what do? You share. This is what Judaism is all about. Love your fellow like yourself. You share and you hope for the best. Rabbi Akiva says, no, you be selfish, you keep the water and you drink it yourself to make sure that you can cross the desert and arrive safely on the other side. What's fascinating is that they actually learn their ruling from the same verse. It's a verse in Vayikra, and the Torah says, V'chei achicha imach. Your brother should live together with you. You need to look out for your brother, and he should be with you. How do we interpret these words? V'chei achicha imach. Ben Petura says like this: V'chei achicha imach. Your brother should live with you means that you have a responsibility like you have for yourself to your brother. Rabbi Akiva says no. Imach means if you can live, then you have an obligation to take care of your fellow. But if by you looking after him, you can't live yourself, you have no obligation. It's like imagine someone says, I'm going to the supermarket, you want to come with me? Or do you say, shall we go to the supermarket? The first one means, I'm going, you want to join? Fine. The second one says, it depends on both of us. So how do we understand the imach with you? Who does the halacha go like? The halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, and that means that we have a responsibility towards ourselves first and foremost. If we can live, then the other person, surely we have an obligation to look after him. Can we use this text to answer our question about autonomous cars? Does it give us any direction?
Selfish one.
A selfish one, and that is, if the halacha is like Rabbi Akiva says you come first, so surely it seems that the passenger always comes first. And therefore, in both of the first two cases, right, if I'm going straight and I'm going to hit the pedestrian, you kill the pedestrian, you come first. In the second case, there's a barrier, I come first, let the car swerve, let him kill the other person and not hit the barrier. You would think so, but the truth is it's not a good reason. It's not good reasoning, it's not a good source. Why not?
Because it's something that you already have, which is the water, so you're keeping it to yourself, you're not sort of changing the intended course of nature, as it were.
100% correct. Let's use the right terms for it in English. Active versus passive. The person in the desert who has the water, he's not killing the fellow guy who doesn't have water. What's killing him? Dehydration. The sun is killing him. I just passively didn't assist in saving his life. But what killed him was the sun. So when it comes to passively, my life comes first. Because I've got to be active either to help myself or to help him. When you're active, you help yourself. If by me being active to save my life, passively kill someone else, that's allowed. Because chayecha kodmim, your life comes first. But to actively kill somebody else, we can't learn anything from this text. You're not allowed to actively, based on this text, kill somebody else. Yes, you have a question.
I don't really think it helps because it's just saying about what we could choose to do as humans, but cars, they wouldn't be able to choose.
Correct. So, what's your name? Maya. So Maya is saying that we as human beings can choose, but a car can choose. But you've got to remember that we are programming the car. So the question is, what do we choose to program the car? So that's what we're going to be discussing. And as a matter of fact, to address your point, what's your name? Mike, Maya, everyone's an M today. So really to be able to get to the bottom of it, the way we need to address it is we actually have to think about how would we act as people, not an autonomous car. We'll come to a conclusion what we would do as drivers, and then we'll try and compare and see how does that apply to an autonomous car. So let's have a look at another halacha. The halacha says like this: there was once a man, it's the Talmud in Tractate Baba Batra, he came to Rava, and he said, I'm in a predicament. And what happened? He said, a non-Jewish guy, horrible man, has told me he's going to kill me. He's a strong, powerful person, and I can't escape. But he's given me a way out. And he told me, if I kill somebody else, then he won't kill me. And he said, surely we know that halacha pikuach nefesh. Your life is the most important thing. We have an obligation to look after our lives. So he said, am I allowed to go and kill this other person in order to save my own life? This Gentile won't kill me. What do you think Rabbi said? Rabbi said no. The words he used was, my chazit, the damach sumak tfei. Why do you think your blood is redder than this other person? Dilma, maybe his blood is redder than yours. So what do we learn from this story? Number one, is there any question that we asked in the first 5 questions that we can address?
It's not your choice.
It's not your choice, we'll see that, but something even more simple. Rabbi didn't ask him, is the other person younger, older? Is he professor? Is he a rabbi? Is he a dayan? He said, not. He talked about the blood. Everyone has the same blood. So from here, straight away we see that halacha gives no value to age, gives no value to pedigree, gives no value to knowledge. It doesn't matter who you are, you do not have any more right to live than somebody else. That's number one. But now let's look more at the case. Rabbi said to him, you are not allowed to actively go and kill somebody else in order to save your life. Does this help us with our first two questions with your car? Either hitting the barrier, which was the second question, or the first one when a pedestrian jumps in? So let's look at the first case. In the first case, let's start with the second case, which you said you can't swerve. So the second case was a man who's driving in his autonomous car, not driving, he's sitting in it. Oh no, we're talking about somebody who's driving. We'll then get to autonomous. A man is driving his car, and then suddenly he sees a barrier in front of him. If he hits the barrier, he'll die. If he swerves, he'll kill the pedestrian, and he'll save his life. Based on this text, can he swerve?
Yeah, because he has to preserve his own life.
He can swerve?
One's premeditated and one wasn't.
No, a man is driving his car. He's going 60 miles an hour. Suddenly he sees from a distance a barrier. He knows he's going to hit the barrier, he's going to die. He cannot brake, it's not an option. The only thing he can do is swerve. He sees the guy on the picnic. Can he swerve, save his life, and kill the pedestrian?
He doesn't know definitely he's going to kill the pedestrian.
That's what's going to be. This is the statistics, this is going to die. Can he swerve based on this text? No. The answer is no. Why? Why do you think your blood is redder than his? You cannot save your life by killing somebody else. Very simple. 100%.
Surely the rabbi who says, no, you cannot kill someone else, is allowing that very fact. By telling him that he cannot kill someone else, is allowing him to be killed by someone else.
What's the difference? One is active, one is passive.
That's active. He's actively saying you cannot do that. And
so who killed the person? The rabbi?
He knows what the result is going to be.
Did the rabbi kill the person?
No.
Who killed him?
The other person.
Thank you very much. So he passively, you could use it, was involved because he gave such a ruling. Whereas if the other person will go and kill, he's actively killing. You are not allowed to actively kill somebody else to save your life.
So what if your child is next to you? And or in the original scenario, if the guy threatened to kill your child if you didn't kill someone else. So it becomes rather more complex because you're saving not just yourself, you're saving your child.
So you're going to quantity.
No, it's the child.
So just the child. So if somebody comes to you and says, can you kill? He says to you, I'm going to either kill your child if you don't kill somebody else. Can somebody help me with the answer based on this halacha? Would you be allowed to kill somebody else to save your child?
In both scenarios, even if you were saving your child by swerving, it's exactly the same.
It doesn't matter if you take a knife or a car. They're both an action of killing. You're not allowed to actively kill somebody else to save yourself, your child, your mother, your father. It doesn't matter. Now, what about case number one? You are going straight ahead. Somebody jumps in front of you. If you go straight, you will kill him. If you swerve, you kill yourself. What do? Do you turn the steering wheel, kill yourself? According to this halacha that we just said, with what Rava told this gentleman, do you go straight and kill the person, or do you swerve? Huh? You go straight. Why? If you go straight and you kill him, it's passive. If you swerve, you are actively killing yourself. And if you're not allowed to actively kill somebody else, how much more so you're not allowed to actively kill yourself. Now you may say, but 1 second, if I go straight ahead, why are you saying it's passive? I'm killing the pedestrian. I haven't changed anything. That's not called active. That is passive. I got in the car in the morning, I'm driving, I'm doing something, everything's 100%. I didn't go actively to kill him. It's just what I'm doing regularly. Like you said, it would be, for example, imagine I got up in the morning and I made myself a coffee, I opened the door, I left the house, and then suddenly somebody comes, picks up my body, some terrorist, and he uses my body to whack it against somebody and kill him. Can we say that I've actively killed this person because I left my house in the morning? I did nothing. Same thing, I'm driving my car, the guy jumps in front of me, what can I do? So the answer is halachically, based on this text, case number one, where you're going straight, what do? Go straight, carry on. Case number two, what do? You go straight, carry on. You do not kill the pedestrian. We've solved question number 3 too, and that is that it makes no difference if there's young people or old people, young versus old. We're still left with the question, What if there is quantity, many versus one? Does the halacha change? Save myself by killing somebody else. He didn't ask, can I save myself and a few people by killing somebody else? So this text doesn't really address the answer. So we need to look elsewhere in our texts to get an answer to this. Yeah?
Just on the earlier point, what about the idea of Rodave and the idea that they're putting someone's life at risk, and then you're able to stop them from doing so?
So Rodaf is a beautiful question. In our next lecture, when we talk about preemptive strikes, Rodaf will come up. In this particular case, Rodaf doesn't apply, because Rodaf is when somebody goes and he is with the intention to go and kill somebody. And then you stop him. Here there's no intention, there's no malice wanting to go and kill someone. Yeah.
This is all confusing the person in the car. All your scenarios assume the person in the car can't override the car, there's no time to do it.
Correct.
So the person in the car actually isn't doing anything active or passive. It's the car that's doing it. So it's the people who program the car who are responsible.
Exactly. So that's why I said we're first going to talk about a person driving. When we come to conclusion about driving, we'll then try and correlate it to autonomous cars.
Except that the person who buys the car or decides to be a passenger in the car, have they got an obligation to find out what the programs are programmed in?
That was the question I asked. It's one of the questions we'll talk about today.
Because different manufacturers of different countries could have different rules.
Did we ask this question? Yeah? So we'll address that. Beautiful. Very good. So let's try and address our fourth question, and that is quantity. So there is a beautiful book, I'm sure you've chanced upon it. It's called the Tanakh. Some great stories over there. If you haven't read them, I highly recommend reading. Most people have read the first 5 books of Moses, but there's still another 19, and they're amazing. And they're great stories with great lessons. And in the book of Samuel 2, there is a story of a man called Sheva ben Bichri. That was his name. Who was being chased. He was a fugitive. He was running away from King David's chief of staff called Yoav. And he deserves death. He deserves capital punishment. And Yoav is there out to get him. And this man runs away and he hides in a city amongst many people. So he's using people as his shield, as his protection. So Yoav comes in the story of the Tanakh and he surrounds the city. And he tells them, listen, I'm going to kill the entire city because you are collaborating with a man who deserves death. And then the story, as in all good stories, a nice Jewish woman who decides to put the ego aside, and she says, Yoav, I need to talk to you. This one man has done something bad. Because of that, you're killing an entire city. And Yoav says, no problem, hand over the man. Hand over Sheva, and I will walk away. No one will die. So what do? They hand over Sheva, and he gets his capital punishment, and he dies. That's the story of the Tanakh. So, what do we see over here? If you look at it without the details, just a concept, one person was killed in order to save many. True or not? The question is, can we learn from here that you kill one person to save many? Well, let's have a look at it. There's actually 3 options as to why they handed over Sheva ben Bichri. 3 reasons why they justified halachically to hand him over. Reason number 1 is because of what we just said. It's better to kill one person than to kill many. That could have been the reason, the logic. Second reason is because the army had named him. They said, we want this specific person. Meaning, had they said, give us any one individual you want randomly, and we walk away, we take the one person, we kill him, then the law would be different. But because they named him, so then it's different. A third option could be because he deserved capital punishment. So he was a dead person to begin with. So you're allowed to kill a person to save many if he's got already a sentence of capital punishment. If, however, there's no capital punishment, it wouldn't be allowed to be done. So what one was the reasoning, halachic reasoning, in this case? So the Rambam tells us, Rambam was one of the most important codifiers of Jewish law, and he says like this: if there's a group of people and they're in a room, in a house, and non-Jews, Gentiles come and say, we are going to kill everyone here unless you hand over one random person. Are we allowed to hand him over? Says the Rambam, Yehargu kulam va'alim siru echad mi'Yisrael. Let them all die, and you do not, again what's the word? Actively hand over somebody and participate actively in his killing. Let them all die. So the Rambam writes as halacha, and this is the halacha. So let's go back to the story of Sheva ben Bichri. Could this be option number one, the reason why they handed him over? The fact that it's one to save many? Can't be the reason. So what is the reason? Again, classic machloket. You have Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan says like this. You're not allowed to hand over somebody, as the Rambam writes, because you can't actively participate in killing one person, even if it saves many. But there's a difference. If somebody has been singled out, if somebody has been asked by the name, we want this person, you're allowed to hand him over, because you're not killing him. Yes, you may be handing him over, but the Gentiles have chosen him. He's been singled out. So what's better? We kill everyone together. In this case, it would be allowed. Rish Lakish is even stricter. Rish Lakish was the brother-in-law of Rabbi Yochanan. He says, no. He says, so what? Just the fact that they've singled him out, you're allowed to actively participate? You're not allowed to hand him over. The reason why they handed over Sheva ben Bichri was because he was deserving of capital punishment anyway. So he was a dead person anyway, and that's why it would be allowed. So therefore he says, when can you hand over one to save the many? Only if he's deserving of capital punishment. Otherwise it's not allowed. Rabbi Yochanan is a bit more lenient. He says, when can you hand over an individual to save the many? Is in the case where he has been picked out. So let's go back to you driving your car. And you're driving your car, it's just yourself. Let's take the first case. There's 5 people in the road. If you go straight ahead, you will kill 5 people. If you swerve, you'll kill yourself, you'll save 5. Are you allowed to swerve to save the 5 people? Assuming that you don't deserve capital punishment. And in this case, for sure, no one's picked you out. What would be the answer? You're not allowed to swerve. You go straight ahead and you kill 5, even if you could have killed 1 to save the 5, or vice versa. It makes no difference. In halacha, there is no difference between 1, 5, 100, or 1,000. It's always the same. Actively, except for the exceptions that we mentioned, you're not allowed to kill 1 person to save many. What is the reason? First of all, it's halacha. I can't stand up here and say this is the reason. I did see something fascinating from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, I should say really, Rabbi, Lord, Chief Rabbi. I can spend all day with the titles. But he says like this, he says that infinity plus infinity equals infinity. So he says every human being is infinite. So 1 person is infinite. Now you have 5 people, you have infinity plus infinity times 5 equals infinity. So why would you kill 1 infinity to save the life of another 1 infinity? It's exactly the same. That's how he explains it. It's an interesting way of looking at things. By the way, there was a case like this in Israel in the 6-Day War, when there was a big building which had many soldiers, and there was about 100 soldiers in the basement of this building, and there was 10 soldiers on the first floor, and the Syrians bombed the building. It came collapsing down, and they were all trapped, 110 of them. So the first floor had 10 soldiers trapped inside, and the basement had 100 soldiers. The IDF came to try and release them, and they needed these tractors, bulldozers, to remove the rubble. But the thing was like this: if they came and they removed the rubble aggressively, the top floor, they would kill the 10 soldiers that are trapped there. If they came and they did it very delicately, they could save the top 10, but by the time they'd get to the bottom, the soldiers down would die from starvation. So they asked the chief rabbi of the army at the time, Shlomo Goren, they said, can we remove the rubble at the top in an aggressive manner and kill the 10 soldiers to save 100? And what did he say? It's not allowed. And unfortunately that's what happened. 100 died in the basement. Yeah.
If we sort of solve this in like 45 minutes, what's the problem? Like, why are they taking so long?
Oh, so Michael's asking if we solve this problem in 45 minutes, why it's taking so long? So we've solved what happens if we drive the car. Remember? Our question is, can we do the same when it comes to pre-programming the car? Can we use the same ethics that we've just discussed and program the car that You can't actively kill somebody else, numbers don't matter, etc., etc. And this is where the dispute is. Because if I am just driving, and then suddenly somebody comes in front of me and I kill him, what did we say? That is called passive. But if I pre-program the car that it should kill the person, go straight ahead and not swerve, is this considered active? Because had I pre-programmed it different, his life would have been saved. So what is the programming considered? Active or passive? That is the big dispute. And as we are talking right now, as I said to you, the OU rabbis are sitting and scratching their heads because they're not sure what's the answer. And although I've seen quite a few discussions about it, and there's certain rabbis that they hold that 100% it is not considered active. They call it passive. Obviously there's a discussion, is it called grammar, which is a proxy, which is a whole separate discussion. But even if it was grammar, bottom line, halachically, you're not allowed to do grammar when it comes to killing someone. It's considered active. So that doesn't help us. But some rabbis hold that you would be allowed to pre-program it, and that is not considered active, but rather passive. What has the OU told Elon Musk for the moment? They said, we need to search, go through more texts, more stories, more, and try and find other ideas, concepts that can correlate to our question. But they've said like this, for the first moment when you hear what they said, it might sound stupid. But when you think about it, it does add up. There is some sense to it. And what they've said is, if you had to make the car tomorrow, for whatever reason you decided, how do you pre-program it? They said what the program should do is, it should shut the computer, the automatic part of it. So it's not an active decision. So if the computer element of the car is now not working, when it sees such a case, so now it's just trajectory going from, the momentum of the driving, and it's not because you programmed it. This is what they've offered so far, obviously not as an ultimate solution, but they said, had to make the car, had to program, had to put something in, this is what they would recommend doing. So as I said, it's still being debated halachically, is the pre-programming considered active? That's where the question is. And that leaves us with one final question. That question is, what about buying such a car? If the verdict is one way, and we believe otherwise, my rabbi says this, and the other rabbi says that, or the government, like you said, we live in England, and they decide a certain way, but the rabbis say different, or Germany does, against, I want to rent a car there, is it okay? So we'll discuss that in just 1 second, yeah?
Oh no, I'll go after this one.
Okay, so halacha says like this, and this is an interesting halacha. Halacha says that, let's take for example, checking vegetables. Do you know that when you buy lettuce, you need to check the lettuce, because there might be bugs there. But when you buy peppers, you don't need to check them. Maybe there's bugs there. Now, do you know that there are bugs in peppers? So why is it that we don't need to check the pepper for the bugs? The answer is because it's davar she'einoi matsui, which means it's something which is very, very rare. And when there's something which is very rare, if you see the bug in the pepper, of course you've got to remove it, you can't eat it. But you don't have to go out and check it. Because it's so rare, it's probably not going to be. Whereas lettuce is something which has bugs, which is much more probable that it will be there, so therefore you need to check it. So when something is a davar she'eino matsui, there's no issue. And therefore halacha says, if you were to buy a car that is programmed against your beliefs, it's okay to buy it. Why? Because it's a davar she'eino matsui. The chances that would be is that you be in such a situation where there's a pedestrian or a passenger, etc., and it's going to act, and it's going to be 1 second. It's very, very rare, very remote. And therefore it has nothing to do with you driving the car on a daily basis. Halachically, you would be allowed to drive such a car, buy such a car, etc. And therefore the final point, which I think is important to walk away and understand, although we said, halachically, Jewishly, we do not save many and kill one, must remember that is only in the case of active. You're not allowed to actively kill one person in order to save the many. But imagine that you work for the Coast Guard and you're a pilot of a helicopter and you get a call, there's a boat that's drowning 3 miles in the sea, and you take the helicopter and you're out there and you see the boat's drowning, and they put down two what they call rubber boats, and inside one rubber boat is 2 people, and inside the other rubber boat is 10 people. Which one do you save first? 10 people. If you make a calculation, say, no, the storm is so strong, by the time I pick up one boat and come back, the other one might drown. Of course, you use your seichel and you save 10 people. Why do numbers make a difference? Because I'm not killing the other 2. They're passively being killed by the waves. So of course it's more responsible and the right thing to do to save the 10 people. You wouldn't be allowed to drown 2 people in order to save 10 people. That's a very different idea. Make sense? So, Bezrat Hashem will not have to deal with these issues because Mashiach will come, and as it says, the world will be a perfect place. There'll be no people jumping into the roads. The whole concept of death will be removed. As we say, V'haya Hashem lemelech hakol haaretz, b'yom hahu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. May that happen speedily in our days. Amen. I have one final question for Mark.
I've read something interesting where essentially the thought experiment is that they save the one that's paid the higher insurance premium, and if that in today's sort of consumer-focused society, it's not particularly hard to see that number one that could be implemented, and number two actually society might buy into it. Obviously the value is put on who has the most money. I'm just, I guess, curious as whether you think that would be likely, and if society as a whole did buy into it, then what the Jewish perspective of going on with that.
I definitely think, and I think everyone here would agree, that money plays no role in saving people's lives. Judaism places no value to that. Yeah, we have some questions.
Just struggling a little bit with the passive and active. If I had time to make the decision, as opposed to no time, I can see a very distinct difference. But if I had time to make the decision, then I feel I'm actively doing something.
If you have time to make a decision, meaning I can save both people, then yes, it doesn't apply. What we're talking about is, that's why we have the discussion before. So let's take the case that you're driving and suddenly a pedestrian jumps in front of you. You're talking about split seconds. If let's say that you're a person who really does based what he's learned and not on his instincts, so the question would be, what do? You can't swerve and save yourself and him. The only option is either you kill him or kill yourself. That's it. This is the situation.
That's an active decision.
But the answer is that decision is nothing wrong with it, because the action is not the decision. The action is the car that's killing him in a passive way. And I've made the decision a long time ago. I'm deciding now to kill him. Yes. Sorry, we got to.
Sorry, I'll get into trouble. Please speak to Rabbi Katz now. They're setting up for lunch now, so stay in here. And please feel free to ask questions. Once again, an amazing talk, Rabbi Katz. People often say, is the Torah relevant to, we're in 2020 now, how can it help us anymore? It was written thousands of years ago, so you can only answer these questions by looking at the Torah. However many years ahead we have to go before, like the Rabbi said, Mashiach comes and we can skip the cars. Samuel.